Good afternoon, Vandal fans, and welcome to another edition of Fourth and Downtown. I'm your host, Josh Grissom. Today I'm joined alongside by Luis the Godfather Torres. We got a lot going on with Vandal Athletics. Chuck Staben gave a candid radio interview yesterday. We will highlight some of the key points of his conversation. Also, the men's and women's basketball team both enter Saturday seeking pivotal first-round byes in the conference postseason tournament next month. Just a couple weeks, actually, not just next month. And just kind of a big day overall. Some updates on the women's tennis team. Their location got moved for their game tomorrow. And also a little bit of coverage on the women's golf team. But first, Luis, we have to go and talk about what happened yesterday. University of Idaho President Chuck Staben discussed his presentation to Sunbelt officials during a radio interview with ESPN affiliate KRPL 1400 AM yesterday. He talked a lot about kind of the various options that were available. He didn't implicitly say what direction the University of Idaho was leaning, but he did talk about essentially everything that they could do, all the different options that they could pursue if they are not offered a Sunbelt contract extension. And what I found was interesting is he didn't really cover his presentation as much, even though it's come under heavy criticism. He did speak very openly about the Big Sky Conference, the Sun Belt Conference, independence, and potential other conference affiliations. But some of the key takeaways from his discussion, he said, quote, "It's probably obvious, but people care deeply about athletics. It's clear there's a deep division of opinion on what would be the best direction for the university," end quotes. Some more quotes. These are all separate quotes, but from the discussion, but I'm just going to lump them all together right now. "There are many strong supporters who feel it is critical we remain in the FBS. There are many that feel it is important we move to an FCS level and feel we can compete more effectively. This is an area where there is great passion. From a strictly financial perspective, remaining in the Sun Belt is the most attractive option. Becoming independent or becoming an FCS team in the Big Sky are similar in terms of their financial position. From a money standpoint, we can make either of those decisions work. They just have different implications about what we do. With respect to the affiliation with the Big Sky, we have a conference that has been fairly stable, a conference that is welcoming Idaho, a conference that has had significant football success, and significant athlete success. At the moment, it is not clear that we would be invited to join another conference aside from the Sun Belt. We have focused primarily on the independent FBS option and the Big Sky FCS option. Athletics is an important part of the University of Idaho. It is important for the student-athlete experience. It's important for the student experience. It's important for our alumni and fans. There's probably more than one direction we might take, and we'll take the best possible direction," end quote. Luis, you kind of got to peruse the article last night that we did highlighting what Statement talked about. What are your initial thoughts kind of reading over that transcript and what it means for the University of Idaho and for fans of Vandal Athletics in general?
I think he was a little bit more clear on his explanation. He didn't really focus much on the presentation. That's definitely one thing that Statement didn't really talk about. But as far as the option, it seems like he's right now sort of hoping that they get the Sun Belt deal, while many people have speculated what the presentation wants us to believe, that we're heading back to Big Sky. But after that interview, it pretty much adds a lot of mystery whether or not they'll stay, because I think he's a little bit torn, and he wants what's best for the program at this point. And the interesting thing is, like, some people have said they should go to the Big Sky. The good majority of them wants them to go. The Idaho want to go back to the Big Sky so that they can actually go see a couple of games on the road rather than one or none in Sun Belt. So it's pretty much like a little bit of a. He was more open about it, but as far as convincing, that's a little bit of a minor bit of a stretch at this point.
I think the most powerful thing that he said during his radio discussion was that let me see if I can find it. Money is not the primary driver in the future decision. He said he and athletic director Rob Spear have looked at monetary issues and says FBS independence and FCS are similar, but the FBS with a conference affiliation is more ideal financially. But that money is not the primary driver. I'm a little surprised by that. I think most of the time an athletics department will usually pursue the option that brings in the most revenue, and the fact that statement really said money's not the primary driver makes me wonder what is the primary driver for the upcoming decision.
If money's not an issue, it's just like that's another thing that I was a little bit surprised. It's like, how is money not an issue? You would think it would be if you want to stay or go somewhere else, but I'm really not sure what to think about the whole ordeal. That money being an issue. It's just when you only have like less than 2 weeks till the big decision. At this point, it's just, man, I don't know what to say about it.
Now, I know a lot of people have talked about if we move to the FCS, how would that impact other sports at the University of Idaho? And the statement said that because football would receive less scholarships, I think it was like 85 to 63 or 61, something like that, that it would impact women's athletics at the University of Idaho by decreasing the number of scholarships available to those athletes. Something else Saban talked about during his presentation was the fact that Idaho had 4 wins last year and dropped a couple of really close games, and they could have been bowl eligible. So the fact he highlighted the team's performance as an aspect of competitiveness that the Vandals bring to the conference. Really interesting thing that was brought up during the interview was that the Sun Belt will make separate votes on the University of Idaho and New Mexico State University. Most people thought, it's either both or none, neither of them, but it sounds like almost New Mexico State might have an edge in that the conference wants them, but if the Sun Belt doesn't want Idaho, then it sounds like they could very easily just let us go.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I'm just wondering. It's like you keep one, you keep both, or you keep none. And if I recall last week, that New Mexico State generally was kind of rooting for us to kind of also stay with them as best as possible. But if they were the favorite New Mexico State and we don't, then that would put us in a difficult situation. I would imagine New Mexico State would feel pretty much bad for us. But at the same time, both teams are competing to stay. It's not mostly like one will stay and the other one doesn't. They're trying their hardest to get both teams, both schools, both institutions for that matter, to stay in the Sun Belt, kind of build their momentum from the last couple of years and be forced to be reckoned with, even if they're that far in the West compared to some of the other schools that are in the South or in the Eastern part of the United States. It's harder to imagine.
And this could all just be for nothing. All this worry that Sunbelt might, in fact, just offer us a contract extension. The fact is we just don't know. And there hasn't been much word from Sunbelt presidents as to their stance on the issue. But, I mean, if we get that contract extension, and maybe it's just like a short-term extension for another couple of years as another testing period. But maybe they offer us and try to make us a permanent member of the conference for, I don't know, I guess not permanent per se, but like a long-term member of the conference for 10 or more years. I could see that, but if not, there's definitely a huge issue that the University of Idaho needs to address right away. And I'm not sure if addressing it in the next month would be best. There's rumors of conference realignment after the NCAA deregulation vote. To be honest, we don't know who's going to go where, if that's even a thing, or what would even happen as far as that is concerned if Idaho would get an offer from a conference that loses teams in a more geographically friendly area like the Mountain West, or I don't know.
And the Mountain West itself has been kind of under a microscope from a rumor standpoint. that there's some teams that are rumored to move up to the AAC where Houston is, but that's just a rumor at this point.
Right now that's just all talk.
Yeah.
There's no substantial evidence behind that at all. So that's something Idaho should not really look into until it officially becomes news.
No, it's only from one source, and that's why I emphasize the rumor, because it's like there's some, but who knows if it's reliable.
Not even sure if it's a credible source as well.
Yeah.
But essentially,
weird.
Essentially it looks, I don't know, reading the transcript, it seems like Chuck Staben is not set on independence, and I totally get that. It's tough. But he did talk about it a little bit more than he has in the past. But he was very positive about the Big Sky Conference being stable, always having an open invitation for Idaho, for the football team, to essentially get all of our sports except for, swim and dive, which is a WAC.
Yeah, swim and dive is a WAC school. Well, part of the WAC.
Yeah. So, I don't know. There's a lot of options, and counting down the days, we have 13 days left until the official vote on March 10th. It'll come on Thursday. It'll be a very hectic day at Idaho for sure. Not sure how immediately the department will react to the news and start looking, if we don't get the contract extension, start looking elsewhere for other conferences. But Staben did say that a move to the Big Sky Conference could come as early as 2018. I know Doug Fullerton, this was before he announced his retirement, talked about the Vandals, if they moved down, possibly adopting a hybrid schedule of both FBS and FCS programs, making them kind of ineligible for the postseason, but it would be a transition period. I don't know. There's a lot of intriguing news as far as this goes, and I'm sure the closer we get to the deadline, the more news will break and opinions will be stated. We've tried very hard to schedule a one-on-one interview with Staben or Spear or somebody in the department to talk about it, but the University of Idaho is being very not locked down, but they're being very quiet on the matter, and I think it's going to stay that way until the vote is announced and the department, if they need to, makes a decision on the matter. But
right now, it's just as more information comes out, we'll definitely bring it right here on 4th and Downtown or on New York or on Vandal Nation. But to me, at this point, it's kind of interesting, and we've seen this in the comments and probably around campus as well, that a lot of people want that Big Sky option. Several people, I know there's so many people that want no FCS at all because they don't want to be the first. But your stance as far as people wanting the Big Sky, I can see some benefits like renewing rivalries, and like I brought up earlier, they'll be much closer compared to the Sun Belt as far as road games. They can go to a couple of them. But at the same time, when it comes to the Sun Belt, the argument can be made is like if they stay, if they get approved, their contract gets extended, then they can build momentum of playing the same teams, and maybe they'll get better and better. They've shown progress last season, and going into this season, it's just a matter of waiting, kind of like a waiting game. It's like, the question is, what happens if they don't get it renewed? Then will they try to go play their hearts out the next couple of years with whatever they have left in the Sun Belt, and kind of want to go, if they were to say go to the Big Sky, then when they go down there, they'll be competitive and they'll be right up there. It's not going to be easy at all when they were to go down there, but that's just kind of like,
there's a lot of talk that Idaho would be more competitive in the FCS. I'm not sure I essentially agree with that. I mean, you look at the teams in there.
Yeah.
Eastern Washington gave Oregon a run for its money, and Oregon was a top 25 program, if not top 20, I believe. It was like 64 to 40 something in that game. They scored a lot of points. The Big Sky is a pretty tough conference, and I know even programs in the Big Sky have talked about potentially moving up to the FBS. It's just a mess right now in college football.
The realignment does not help the whole situation. You have people moving to different conferences. Some of the names have to some of the conferences' names have to be changed. Some of them that don't even have the number that they emphasize. Some of them have at least 2 or 3 schools in a conference, which I think I could have swore, what was it, like the Big Ten or Big Ten or Big 12, they actually have more than what they say. I'm not sure which one of the conferences from the top of my head, but there's so many. It's been a hot mess for the last couple of years. The FBS, FCS, which conference you go, which conference gets dropped, and vice versa. This is like a wicked time for all these changes to happen.
And it's tough, and we've talked about this before on the air. I think it's unfortunate that the Sun Belt contract comes now, the vote on an extension comes now. I think if it had come like 2 years from now, or even if Idaho had won those 2 games that they lost, that were really close, this probably wouldn't be a discussion, because Idaho would be a bowl winning team in this, or not bowl winning. Sorry, that's way too bold of a statement. Yes, they would have been a bowl team, and the Sun Belt to say no, we don't want you would be news. But I think I wish they would just give them 2 more years before a vote was made, or just like extend their contract for 4 years with another vote in 2 years as to whether or not they'll keep them. Because then I think we'll get the full, is Paul Petrino's philosophy working? Is this team, was last season just not a fluke? Or because I think they're good. I really think that
it's like when they put the pieces together, when they have all the pieces together and play all 4 quarters, they're really good. It's just a matter of how the defense will do this upcoming season, which we talked about many times, that the defense was among the detriments of last season as far as those wins slipping away, and especially in the 4th quarter. I think they can give it. I think they have a great chance of getting better. And this thing is kind of like putting a setback for him right now. But I would imagine that the best case scenario is kind of like get ready and play like nothing's going around behind them, because they're right now they have a lot of targets as far as whether they're going to stay or not. But pretty much, what I digress. We also have heard as far as another news around Idaho football regarding one of our former players, and a pretty much good note that we don't really see, like with the Elijah Penny ordeal.
Oh, he was at the NFL Combine. Yes.
Yeah. If we're done talking about the
we can go for it. I wasn't able to catch much of the Combine, so I'm sure you were able to see a little bit more than I was.
No, I pretty much what I heard around that Elijah Penny was around the draft combine, and it was one of the top runners for our program. It's good to see, for me, from an opinion standpoint, it's good to see a couple of Vandals getting this opportunity to be in the combine and get this chance to possibly getting drafted, not like right on top or right in the middle, but at least an opportunity to get drafted late in the going, kind of make some noise. It has happened before that you may not heard about this certain player, but once you see him in the combine or hear more about it, then boom, they kind of increase their numbers. So it's like good to hear a Vandal getting in the combine like Elijah Penny. I think he earns it. As far as news information as how he did per se, there wasn't really much out there other than he went to the combine. So well, very interesting little side note fact as far as Idaho football, outside of the whole situation that the program on campus is facing right now.
Yeah, so good news as far as running back Elijah Penny at the NFL Combine. We will keep you updated if he does really well and has a breakout performance there, maybe increases his draft stock. We will see about that. So I guess we'll move on to right now, while we're still talking about sports, the women's tennis team, their match got moved tomorrow. It's not going to be on the University of Idaho campus. Instead, it got moved to Lewiston. I believe they're going to play at the LCSC facilities down there, and I believe that starts at 10 a.m. So for any Vandal fans who are hoping to catch some tennis and some sun this weekend, it looks like that's not going to happen. Both the Sun and the Vandals will be gone. It's supposed to rain pretty heavily. That's what I hear. So the team will be down in Lewiston. Go check them out. Also, we'll talk about some women's golf that happened earlier this weekend. They were playing in the Gold Rush tournament at Old Branch County Club, in Long Beach, California. Kind of a tough showing for the Vandals women's tennis team. They finished 12th out of 15 programs with a 70 over par, 934. USC finished first with a 1 under par. Senior Kristen Strankman was awarded Big Sky Women's Golfer of the Week. She tied for 23rd in individual competition with a 10 over par, 226. Freshman Michelle Kim also had a very strong showing of her own, finishing the tie for 38th with a 13 over par, 229. And Coach Johnson of the team said that Kristen and Michelle showed improvement from last week, and we were extremely happy with their overall games. End quote. She also was talking about putting and short game essentially being a weakness that the Vandals needed to work on over the next few weeks. She said, quote, "Putting is such a significant part of the game. We need to find ways to overcome our current struggles on the greens. We will bounce back and be stronger for it," end quote. Their next tournament will be next month in Fresno at the Fresno State Classic. We will provide updates on those as they happen. So a fairly strong showing against a really tough field for the Vandals. 12th out of 15 programs isn't bad when you look at some of these nationally ranked teams, and especially when number 17th ranked player in the nation, Robin Ree, takes home the individual title. You have some stiff competition, but
stiff competition something that helps you to kind of grow, make the team see what grow, two, see what they can work on to be right up there. It's kind of like sometimes you want to have those kind of really tough games to kind of test yourselves. Otherwise, if you have a relatively weak schedule, people will know it and make a comment about it. So even though it wasn't really like spectacular, like top 5 or anything, it's still kind of like a good effort. Right now to start off with, especially when you have all those those ranked teams and competitors.
Yes. Now we turn our attention to two pretty huge matchups for the Vandals basketball teams tomorrow, both the men's and the women's. They will be facing Eastern Washington. The women will travel to Cheney, while the men will play at home, not at the Calvin Spectrum, but at Memorial Gym. A really interesting atmosphere as far as a somewhat regional rivalry matchup, but we'll get to that in just a second. There's 3 games left for the Vandals. They're currently in a tie for 4th place with Idaho State, who lost last night. And they play Idaho State at the conclusion of the year. But Eastern Washington, I believe, is ranked number 3 right now in the conference, and I will double check that right now as I'm talking. But
I think, are we tied in 4th because of yesterday's game or something like that?
Yes, because of last night's game, we are tied with 4th. Before that, we were trailing Idaho State by a half game, but now we are right with them after their loss. Some huge matchups for the Vandals. All 3 of their games remaining in the regular season are against top 4 teams in the Big Sky Conference. Yes, Eastern Washington is ranked number 3 right now with a 10-5 conference record. Idaho 4th in a tie for 4th. A 3-way tie for 4th with North Dakota and Idaho State with a 9-6 record. So big game tomorrow for the Vandals men's basketball team. Just if they win, then they will be in a tie for 3rd with Eastern Washington, but they will hold the tiebreaker. Oh no, I'm not sure. No, because they would essentially split with Eastern Washington, so they would not hold the tiebreaker.
I was going to say, it's not like how the NFL is with, like, in conference where, say, for example, say one thing, the Seahawks were to beat the LA Rams the second time around, but they couldn't beat them the first time around. It's usually like the second game that breaks the tie.
Okay. Well, I don't know what the extra tiebreakers are.
I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me if that is implied, but who knows?
We will
have to wait to find out.
Yep, we will see about that, but essentially they would be tied for 3rd with Eastern Washington if they were to win tomorrow. That's disregarding all the other potential matchups. So there could potentially, let's see, if North Dakota and Idaho State win, could maybe be a 3-way tie for 3rd. Wow.
It's coming down the stretch.
Yes. So it's going to be a really tough matchup for the men's basketball team. They are facing a Eastern Washington program that is really high scoring. The last 4 games for the Eagles have resulted in over 90 points. In the last 8 games, they've averaged 91 points and eclipsed triple digits 4 times. They've won 7 of their 8 games in the last 8 matchups for the team. So it's almost essentially going to be the Eastern Washington offense versus the Idaho defense. Idaho has been really good about holding opponents. I believe, off the top of my head, they've held opponents to about 65.8 points per game as an average this season. But I don't know. I think the Eagles are a very good shooting team, and especially from 3-point range. It'll be tough to hold them, and I think the Vandals, after that loss to Sacramento State, need to do some adjusting, and they've had a week to do it, so maybe they'll figure it out. But
yeah, and that's one of the things that I wrote about, that defensively if they can be strong in defense like they've been for the last couple of games, with the exception of Sacramento State in the second half, then we'll have ourselves a really close ball game. But it's just, can they stop the 3-point game? That's going to be difficult, and it's going to be difficult, but I think they know that they have to perform, and they've done a nice job hanging in there. They're pretty much very confident, but they gotta be strong. They gotta be stronger than they ever been, and it's just a matter. I think this could be like the very first game where Sanders and Calendar are can really explode. This is gonna be I will be focused on them. That this could be their game to prove that they are ferocious as we envisioned they could be had they not been injured.
And I think this is the critical game of the 3. I think the Vandals could very easily split their last 2. Weber State's a tough opponent. I don't know if the Vandals will be able to come away with a win there.
They've been on a roll.
Yeah. So let's just hypothetically say they lose that. I think they have a very good chance to beat Idaho State. So that's a 1-1 split. And so it essentially comes down to this game, whether they have to take 2 of the 3 or can only take 1 of the 3, or even if they could maybe even lose to Idaho State, which means 0 for 3. But you never know. It's the Big Sky Conference. That's why you play these games. It'll be tomorrow at 1 p.m. in the Memorial Gym. Huge matchup. Get on down there, support your Vandals. Junior guard Perion Calandret said that, this is his quote, "I feel like it'll be a lot more heated in there. It's a smaller gym and everything is more enclosed. I feel like when we are in that small gym, we can really rally behind the crowd," end quotes. So huge game for the Vandals. Even in women's basketball, as we look at that real quick, the team is battling for the number 1 seed on the women's side. They are just 1 game behind conference leader Montana State, who has a 13-2 record. The Vandals have a 12-3 record, and they're tied with Eastern Washington, who also has a 12-3 record. Essentially just boils down to the race for the number 1 seed. The Vandals have almost essentially locked down a first-round bye in the postseason tournament. The question is now, where do they end up? Do they get that number 1 seed? Do they fall to 3? Can they hold at 2? We'll just have to see. I think Saturday's matchup will be a very good test of the caliber of the team. They will be on the road in Cheney, and that game will be at 2 p.m. at Reese Course. So huge implications for the standings on both the men's and the women's side. Interesting dynamics also as far as the women's basketball team is concerned. Eastern Washington lost to Sacramento State 94-91. 2 days later, the Vandals scored 107 points and rounded to a 47-point win over the Hornets. Newly said it's not based on anything, and that the Sacramento State just plays a very different style of play that sometimes is effective, sometimes it isn't, and there wasn't much you can take away from that game. But the fact that Eastern Washington lost to the Hornets, hopefully that gives the Vandals a little bit of a mental edge, I think. It's what allowed the Vandals to essentially be in this place where they're fighting for that top seed. So we'll have that going on. That'll be in Cheney. Essentially, that's our program today. We've hit the 4 o'clock mark. Luis, final thoughts before we head into the weekend?
Well, this is the pivotal moment. Eastern Washington versus Idaho, both basketball games with a lot of implications as far as who will get a first round bye, who will be on the wayside playing a little bit longer than others. Here on this getting very cloudy and dark Friday, it's expected to rain here on Friday night with some breeze and rain on Saturday, which may influence the tennis match. But I think for the women's, and I'm going to say this, both games is going to be really challenging. But for the women's, I think the women's have a more likely chance of probably coming out of Cheney on top. While Idaho men's, there's just a couple key components that's going to make it difficult for them to beat the Eagles at this point. It's going to be interesting to find out and see what happens.
Yeah, I'm having a difficult week. The Phoenix Suns are on a 13-game losing streak right now. It's the worst losing streak in the NBA, so not fun for me. So I am hoping the Vandals are able to pick up my attitude tomorrow with a huge win in conference play, and
That'll be huge.
yeah, hopefully be in the hunt for a first-round bye on the men's side. But just want to thank you all for joining us today. We will be back Sunday at 11 to talk more about the men's and women's results and kind of a wrap-up of the rest of the sports going on over the weekend. So we'd like to thank you guys for tuning in. This is Fourth and Downtown. Until next time.